Thanks for the information. Yeah, so once again, welcome to the session. So today is the demo session two, and yeah, so for the session and so before proceeding with the session, I hope everyone downloaded the ISO. If not, this is the drive link. Okay, so you can either click on this link or you just type the URL shortener like bit.ly/linuxll. Okay, so either one you can go to that and it will land it in this drive page in the Google Drive. So just click on that installation files and scroll down and you can download this file. And this is for the people who want the VM to be installed. And if you have hard time installing the VM, or like if you don't have the permission to install the VM, then there is no other choice just to go with the AWS or some like sorry some other CSP, right? So that's what Amarinder. Either you can do using GCP, either one you just choose. Don't choose more than one. Like anyhow, it will be the same. Okay, so if you're done in GCP, it's great. So anyhow, I'll show everyone how to do that. But just like it's your choice. Like if you want to perform in your own machine, obviously you can follow. I will try to cover it in today's session because booting procedure itself would take some time. If not, we will see how the installation works in next session. And yeah, so if you're already installed on or you spin up a VM, that's great. So yeah, so just to inform you, please do download if you want to run the VM in your local machine, right? So yeah, so first thing we'll see the booting process and all, and later we'll see the what is the difference between virtualization and container. Okay? So because before installing the VMware, we need to understand what is the actual purpose of the VMware, right? So yeah. So first thing, why booting process is very important, right? So that would be your question, and in order to answer that, that's what like you're going to handle a lot of machines in your work environment once you are placed as a Linux admin or sysadmin. So in that case, let's say obviously not on daily basis, there will be some machines which would often stuck in the booting process, or if it is rebooting, you need to know exactly actually what is happening in the background. So in your Windows, actually, you will be stuck up with the logo which is loading in the like what is actually happening in the background while the logo is shown to you, right? So most people don't know that. So mostly yeah, in Windows also it's almost same. There are few steps added actually, not the exact steps here in terms of Windows, but yeah, few steps are added. And let me open Paint and explain you what actually this is. So the first thing is so first thing obviously you turn on the on machine. So first and foremost thing, once you turn on the machine is it will do a post. What is a post is power on self test. So what does that mean? Let me quickly show you the image of a motherboard. Just a sec. Yeah, so this is a motherboard from MSI. So what actually is the components you see here is we won't get too technical. Like if we see or if I try to explain every components, it will take that itself at least more than 1 hour or even 2 hours, right? So that many components are there. The major components are this is your CPU block, this is your RAM or DIMM slots. Okay, so there are four RAM slots you can populate here, and you have SSD, which is your nothing but your storage, right? So this is a NVMe SSD slot, and this is your GPU slot, this one, right? And yeah, so you can connect much more than one GPU also, and you can even connect some sound card if needed, sound or external Wi-Fi card. And this too is for your SATA drives. Okay, so and in order to power everything, so this is your motherboard, 24 pin, and this is to power on your CPU, right? So these two are the power uh, pins for that. It is a eight pin setup. So and in order to cool down every VRAMs, so these are all heat sinks. Means there is a like a copper pin will be there. Means yeah, it is just a thin sheet of copper just to do the heat dissipation. And yeah, this is the first thing. So what it will be doing is you will connect all the electronic components here, right? So it will do a power cycle, means it will just send a small voltage of current to everything, right? So every component, and why that is needed because let's say if it is a faulty memory, right? So let's say you didn't seated the memory correctly, and obviously it won't work, right? So or that memory won't be detected. So in the very first step itself, it will be a hardware failure. Okay, so not only memory. Let's say you are having a network card and it is not being seated properly, or it is actually a faulty card, right? So in the very first step itself, it will be like it won't work proceeding further, right? So that's the reason the post will be happening. And once the post is done, you will have this LED. Actually, just a sec, let me zoom. So here it is mentioned as LED, right? So it is called as easy debug LED, or in some like some laptops, you will have the debug lights. Oh, sorry, debug the numbers will be there, and let me show you error codes. Okay, so there are error code, it will be showing in the, yeah, like this, in this one. So which means there are if you see the manual, each error code there represents an issue with like a CPU, or it is not happening. So this is what the debug LED. Okay, so if the CPU is fast, that LED it won't like there won't be an amber light next to that LED, right? So if everything is passed, there won't be any LED showing, right? So if it is stuck somewhere, let's say your DRAM is not detected, or it is a faulty DRAM, it will be stuck that in that LED, and there will be an amber light in that LED, right? So like that. That's the first step itself. Okay, so it is a purely hardware one, and once the hardware is fine, it will move on to the next step, which is the most important one. That once the hardware is detected, which one to be prioritized, right? And what is the hardware information? So in order to do that, the system will have uh, thing which is there for even in your, so till this even in your Windows also it is the same. Okay, so BIOS is common for any platform. BIOS is much needed, right? So what is a BIOS is basic input output system, and that's the first thing the system will boot. And the many will think that okay, BIOS is residing in the hard disk. Obviously no, BIOS is residing in your motherboard itself. Okay, and this is nothing but a CMOS battery. So this is the one which is powering your BIOS. And if something went wrong with this battery, or if it is um, if it is depreciated, so you need to replace that. So sometimes you might need to do that. Or if you want to do the power cycle for your BIOS, or if you want to reset your BIOS, you just remove this battery and again plug in. Your BIOS settings will be reset. So that is a simple hack which we used to do. And so why I am explaining in this board, because I own this MSI motherboard only. So that's the thing. Okay. So what is BIOS? And first thing is your hardware, right? So hardware information. So what are all the hardware plugged in your machine? So from here itself, you can understand, okay, the RAM which is plugged in, and even though it is past the power post, still it might not detect. If it is not detected, you can see it from the hardware information here and your temperature. Okay, so it is a real-time temperature you can see here, right? So and temperature matters actually, even for uh, like a commercial use, even in your enterprise, right? And your CPU or your whole case fan, all the fan information that also will be in real time. Okay, so the next one will be your the frequency. So what is the frequency means? What is the exact speed your CPU and memory is running? Okay, so let me quickly show you your screen. Yeah, so this is the one. Yeah. So this is the BIOS information. So you see that the CPU and memory speed. So what is the speed means? This is the exact frequency in which your system will be running. And even after booting also, you can see that. Let me show you my, sorry, this laptop's frequency in which it is running. So you just go to the task manager and go to the performance and CPU. Here you see the base speed, right? So that is actually your at which your CPU is running. Okay, so and to be frank, you can increase or decrease that depends on your motherboard manufacturer. So sometimes it will be locked, means you can't fiddle with that. Okay, so that's your CPU frequency. Mostly memory, very few companies allow that, especially in laptop side. In your when it comes to your personal computer, literally you can do that. Okay, so very few manufacturers or it is limited to some of the CPU manufacturers like Intel sometimes log that okay, you should not change this frequencies and that. Okay, so few models it will be. And so you see, this is the information I told. Like you have a CPU temperature, and there is a motherboard temperature also, and all the information, right? So all the CPU, motherboard, what is the exact motherboard firmware version, and even the BIOS version also you can see here, and you can update that based on the like let's say if it is outdated for quite some time, obviously you need to update it, right? So you can do that. And so this is the thing. You can even change all the memory and CPU, all these information, and every system has its own BIOS screen or the exact BIOS version. So it depends on the manufacturer. So this is the MSI one. So in your case, it might be different one, right? So the UI. And the very important one, especially in your BIOS screen, is your boot priority list. So in which, like, okay, so first thing, yeah, you connected all the components, right? So which one to be prioritized? Let's say you are having a hard disk as well as you are having this NVMe SSD here, right? So you are having hard disk, and let's say you connected your pen drive and any removable disk also. So which one to be prioritized first, right? So that should be your um, priority list, or it is called as boot order. So that is the main purpose of actually the BIOS. So, like, what should be the boot order? It should be proceeding to the next stage. So, first thing, let's say it's hard disk. Next one is your SSD. So, SSD full form is a solid state drive. Okay. So, the next one is, let's say, your removable disk. Right. So, like that, the boot order is selected. So, let's say you selected the hard disk. So, the next step is what is the partition style? Right. So in which your hard disk is being partitioned. Okay, so obviously it should be partitioned before. If it is a new laptop or new system, obviously the vendor is already installed an partition style, so it will be following that. If not, it is called as MBR or GPT. Okay, so there are two types of partition you can do. So partition style, one is MBR, another one is GPT. So what is the full form of MBR is Master Boot Record, and GPT full form is GUID partition table. So what is the difference between these all? So first thing, MBR and GPT approaches the disk partition in a different way. Okay, so the easiest way to understand is MBR is supported in every system, and your legacy servers also being supported. Legacy servers in the sense it is a very old server, right? So like let's say at least more than 10 to 20 years old machines also. MBR partition style is being supported. And GPT is nothing but your mostly it is used in your Windows, right? So even in my machine, and you can even check in yours. So just right click in your Windows key and go to disk management and select any one of the disks. So in my case, I have only one. Just right click that and go to properties. Okay. And you just click on this volumes. You see the partition style. So by default, Windows prefers GPT. And that's good actually. Why? Because Windows has its uh, so so GPT has its own benefits. Like you can create 128 primary partitions. So we will see what is the exact meaning of primary partitions later, because we will cover that in the disk management sessions. But you just see the difference between both. In MBR, actually, you can create only four primary partitions. Okay, and as per us, it is nothing but a disk, right? But in the server point of view, it will be thinking that okay, it is a sector. It need to uh, like diversify its data or the data blocks in sectors. Okay, so how to manage the sectors and many things it is different between MBR and GPT. In disk management session, we will see clearly what is the difference. Okay, so but as of now, in Linux especially, we the system or the partition style is MBR. Okay, so just to make you understand, so like this, there are many sectors it will be. So just let's say there are 8 sectors here, and this is the first sector. Okay, so in the first sector, it will try to group grub. Okay, so what is grub? And there is a trivia thing that grub is also in your Android phone also. Okay, so means it is nothing but a bootloader. Okay, so the full form of grub is Grand Unified Bootloader. So now, let's say after the BIOS, you selected hard disk, and in the hard disk, it need to boot to the very first uh, very first sector. So that's the reason every time, let's say you reboot your machine, it might take some time to load, or once the BIOS is done, there might be a millisecond of black screen. You might even not notice nowadays if you're using SSD, but that's what it is trying to search for. What is the start sector or the first sector, right? So once it found the first sector, that's what your grub screen is. And what is a grub screen? It is nothing but which one to be booted first. Let's say you're having multiple operating system in the same device or the same storage. You are having both Windows and Linux. Which one to be preferred, right? So because let's say you are booting to Windows, you can't boot to the Linux at the same time, right? So either one can be done, and you're this is not a virtual one, so it need to load all the drivers, everything, and either one can be loaded. So let's say you want to load Linux, it need to be selected. So that's the purpose of grub. Okay, so very important screen. And you might ask, okay, this is needed only for dual boot or triple boot setup. You might think that, but no. Grub screen will be there even for a single operating system. And so this is the grub screen you might seen before. Just a sec, let me show you. Yeah, so you might have seen this kind of screen, right? So GNU grub screen for Ubuntu, and you have Windows in the same machine, right? So if it is a bootable disk, you will see the both are listed over there, right? So either one can be booted at the same time. So you can either choose Ubuntu or Windows. Okay, so like that, and if it is a Windows like grub screen, so like this only it will be listed. Either you want to boot to Windows 10 or Ubuntu, and yeah, you need to choose either one. And why means all the drivers and everything will be different, right? So literally the way it approaches itself will be different. So yeah, so once grub is done, right? So even for a single operating system, the grub will be showing at least the first one. What is the operating system? So we will see that anyhow our rel itself is a only one we will be populating in our VMware. So we will see that actually all this booting process, how it works, we will see once we install the operating system, right? So the next step is once you selected the OS, what is the main part of the operating system? So yesterday we saw, right? So which is your kernel. So why kernel is important, right? So I guess let's increase the font. So your kernel is the one which is responsible for your drivers. So what is the driver here? So driver information and your hard disk information, or sorry, disk management, service management, and the list goes on. Okay, so like that, the kernel is responsible for many things. So what is a driver, right? So it is like a middleman from your local machine to your actual physical device. So let me show you my, let's say Bluetooth, right? So I have Bluetooth drivers, but let's say I want to use this headset or this Bluetooth earphone. If I want to use that without this Bluetooth driver enabled, I can't do that, right? So even though the Bluetooth is natively supported and there is a chip inside my laptop supporting the Bluetooth, without that native driver, it won't work. So that's the thing. right? So the drivers are very much important, and the the kernel does that, right? So it will pull all the drivers information, and even if there is any failure also, it will be detected, right? So that's what. Not only drivers, you like even your all your disk management also will be taken care by your kernel and your service management. It's like almost everything is relying on the kernel. And the funny part is the kernel will be very small in size, right? So it is just like your a bunch of it is like around 10 to 10 MB to less than 100 MB. We can put it like that, right? So less than 100 MB, and that's the most important file of the whole machine, right? So in your Windows, you have system 32 file, right? So let me show you that. Just go to C, Windows. So why I'm coming back to Windows every time is you can easily relate to Windows. Okay, so that's the reason. And in your Windows, you see this system 32 directory. So here is what almost everything related to your Windows will be there. All the important DLL files from that to your host entries, everything. So that's what like similar to the system 32, you have kernel, but in Windows it is called as EFI. So, yeah. So from this point, the Windows, the way Windows booting, right? So it will be different, but we will see the Linux booting only as of now. So once kernel is done, the next one is your init process. So even the same I just mentioned in the notes also. Okay, so yeah, grab. So what are all the different images in your machine will be loaded, and it is a splash screen by the way. Your grab this and your kernel. So once again, the kernel is the first process it will be loading, right? So let's say you are having a system startup services like let's say even in your Windows you do a Windows Defender like your antivirus, right? So like that, a few important services will be starting along with your operating system. Even that will be decided from the kernel end, right? So that's the first thing. And the next process is your init and run level. So both are almost combined. So you will see both. Okay, so what is init and what is run level? And with that, we can uh, the booting process will be done. Okay, so just go. So till now, we loaded every driver, everything. So now, how to initiate your mission, right? So, and this is only for the current session. Obviously, it will stay the same for the rest of the sessions until you change the settings. But as of now, it will be booting as per the default one you selected, which is your init process. Init means initialize or the first process or how to approach your mission, right? So you are having around 6 steps or 6 run levels, any way you can call it. So it is called as init tab or init table. Okay, so it is around from 0 to 6. So what is this, right? So and there is a equivalent for the same in your Windows also. I will show you that. But as of now, this is the each and every um, thing has its own meaning, right? So zero, if you type init 0, your system will go to a shutdown state. Okay, so it will be sending a signal that okay, your system to be shut down, and yeah, it will be shut down in your VM also, and even in your physical machine if you are installed, it will be shutting down the machine. And how about init 1? If you type init space 1, and it will go to a single user mode. Okay, so what is a single user mode is? It is kind of like an emergency mode, or only you will be having the access to that, and it is also called as console view or console mode. So there is no remote session you can't take because like SSH won't work. Okay, so single user mode, SSH won't work. Uh, uh, like the next mode itself is like a counterpart for the single user mode, which is multi-user mode, right? So what is which is init 2, right? So multi-user. So now you might ask, okay, what is multi-user then, right? So your Linux operating system, right? So it is nothing but a multi-user operating system, which means at the same time, even you can open multiple sessions for the same user. So let's say I opened a session for root user or any user. I can open like 100 sessions also. Still, every session it will work. Whereas in your Windows Server or any other operating system, other than Linux, this multi-user won't work actually. It will work. There is a workaround, but natively it won't work. Okay, so if even in your Windows Server, if you open the same user multiple times, or if you log in again, the previous session will be disconnected. Okay, so that's the meaning of multi-user. And the init 2 here, which is without NFS. So what is the meaning of that is without network drive. So in my case, I have this Wi-Fi, right? So this NIC card itself won't be detected. So this network adapters, right? This itself will be disabled if you in that mode. Okay, so that's what the multi-user without NFS. And init 3, which is the default one, which is like multi-user mode will work as well as your networking, right? So both will be working. And init 3 and init 5 is the most used, or that is almost like a default one every system has. Okay, and init 4 is not being used, so you can ignore that. And init 5, right? So init 3 actually it is nothing but a non-GUI version, which is CLI. So init 3 is what most of your companies use, right? So even in your case, you can also set init 3. So the GUI won't be loaded. Okay, so it is just like a command prompt or your shell. Okay, uh, just it will be like this. Okay, so only this will be loaded. There is no graphical elements involved. So that's the init 3. How about init 5 is it is called as X11, which is your GUI mode. Okay, so or GUI. Okay, so that's your init 5, which means it will load exactly like your Windows machine. It has a GUI element, and we will install GUI based only. So yeah, there is no need. Obviously, you can change it anytime, but mostly in your local machine, you can use GUI. No, there is no issue in that. But in your work environment, very few companies install a GUI version. Mostly it will be only CLI, or the default one will be init 3. Okay, so the last init process is if you type init space 6, it will reboot your machine. It will send that reboot signal and it will be rebooted the machine, right? So that's your init table or init tab. And the equivalent to that one is in your Windows also. So, so if you go to the start and type system configuration and go to boot, and you have advanced options and all the boot options. Just select this checkbox. You have this different options, right? If you select safe boot and minimal, uh, it won't boot the network. You see, network is separate thing. So minimal means without any network. And if you select this no GUI boot, it is exactly your init 3. So there won't be GUI loaded. Even in your Windows, you can do that actually. So there is no GUI. And if you don't want any OS boot information or the boot logo, right? So nothing will be loaded if you select all these. And yeah, it is just like your just like your Linux, it will be very minimal and very few services only will be running. So that's what. minimal means. So only your system services will be running. Okay, so no third party will be running by default. So once you are booted and you open that, obviously it will work. Okay, so that's what this safe boot mode is. It is exactly like your um, init 2, right? So multi-user without NFS. And if you select this, it is init 3, multi-user with network, right? So, and if you unselect this one, means GUI will be loaded, which is your Xlab. Just to give a Windows example. So yeah, that's what Windows is. And so this services, right? So these are all the startup services in your machine. So let me show you. So I have these many third-party softwares in my machine, which need to be loaded along with the operating system, right? So like that, you have different run levels in your server and what are all the softwares you want to load along with your OS. So first thing, you have etc init.d. So if you any software is placed or any binary is placed in this path, it will be loaded along with the or it will be booted along with the operating system. Okay, so etc init.d. Like that, you have etc rc.d. So this is what etc rc.d and different run levels. Actually, this 0 to 0, 1, and 2, it doesn't make sense because 0 means shutdown, right? So run level 3 and run level 5 is important one, right? So that's what, like, mostly you will configure that, or in most cases I seen it is configured directly in initd, especially in your production servers and all, or you have choice to select in that rc.d, rc3.d. Okay, like this. There are different run levels. Based on that, you can boot it. So it is like a startup services or startup programs like this, right? So yeah, and once your run level is set, you will see the lock screen. So just by pressing the power button and while the server is loading the lock screen, these many steps are happening in the background. And let's say if it is stuck in your hard disk or it can't detect your hard disk, it will be stuck here itself in the MBR or in grub screen. So you need to troubleshoot that. And if there is any kernel issue or anything, it will be stuck in this section itself. You need to go back and diagnose it. And mostly there won't be any issue for your init process and all. So you are good there. And let's say it is totally a hardware issue. You can see in your like, let's say you are running a data center. In that, you can see the HP ILO or the exact console view. There would be an event log, right? So let's say if there is a faulty power supply unit or anything, right? So it will be listed over there, or if the CPU fan is not running or something, so it will be showing in the event log like that. It is actually a hardware issue only. Okay, so like that. So last step is your lock screen, right? So once you see the lock screen, obviously your system is booted. So yeah, is there any doubts, anyone? And I given a very toned down version of this one. So why? Because it is a very huge topic. Okay, why just with BIOS itself, you can like explain a lot. I didn't even explain the overclocking you can do and much more than that. Okay, so just a basic idea what will be the uh, flow or what is the actual booting procedure. So yeah, any doubts, please let me know. If not, we can proceed with the system or the VM installation. Okay. So I'll be sharing this with today's notes. And if you want to have access to the notes, it will be uploaded. But only if you, I guess, if you paid for the session, only you can download those notes as per the portal. So yeah. And for the people who didn't join in like to the WhatsApp group, so this is the WhatsApp group link. So just click on that. Let me share it in the chat once again. Right. So yeah, anything related to our session, like if I'm not available on that day, on one particular day or something, it will be posted over this WhatsApp group. Okay. So yeah, and this is the same drive link only. So you just click this hyperlink and it will be redirecting you to the group. Sorry, drive. Okay. So yeah. Let me go to the installation files. So first thing, once you are in the drive, double click on the installation files. And let's see if you, I will show you all the three methods how to install. So first method is your VMware. Okay. So the next one is your GCP and your AWS. Okay. So we will see all the three. But before moving further, we need to understand what is virtualization. Right? So without knowing that, so you can't actually understand, okay, what is happening in the background of VMware or how it is actually doing that, right? So we will see a little bit about VMware and come back to the installation. So let me show you that. And parallelly, we will see what is the containers or containerization. We will see how it actually differs between VMware and containers. Okay, so first thing, let me this base OS or the base OS is nothing but the OS which I'm currently running in my laptop, which is the Windows 11. Right, so same thing goes here as well. And this one is virtualization. This one is containerization. Okay, so let's say you're having the base OS as Windows 11, and the first thing is whether you enable the virtualization or not. Okay, what is virtualization? Right, so virtualization is you are using your hardware, and these are all the hardwares, right? So CPU, memory, your disk, and your network. So these are all the different system resources. And if you want to use the system resources virtually inside the same machine, or you can do a resource sharing, that's the actual use of virtualization. So what is virtualization is you are going to enable the virtualization, which is nothing but an internal feature along with your operating system, which will enable, or let's say if it is enabled, you can use the same CPU through some virtualization software, or let's say in this case VMware, you have Nutanix and so many softwares are there. The VMware pioneered this one. Okay, so they, so why there is a need for virtualization, you might ask. Obviously, there is an operating system which is already running here. So why a use of VMware, or what is actual use of VMware is? So this is a fully running operating system, and it will be loading everything. But there is a wastage of your resources, right? So let's say obviously the CPU is under threshold, or it is not using to its full potential, right? So if I run some applications here, obviously it will be running, but still you can run much more applications, but there is a platform dependent. So those applications must be ran from Linux machine like that, right? So again, for that you need to buy a new hardware, like your motherboard. Everything will be a different one, right? So you need to buy a new system just for that running that specific application. Instead, you can use the virtual, or you can share the same CPU virtually and install a virtual machine, so that virtual machine is nothing but it is a exact machine only, just the resource will be shared virtually, all these resources. Okay, so yeah, that's what the basic need for virtual machine, or the it is kind of a basic idea behind the virtualization. Okay, so VMware is the one. So it's already been there, but VMware pioneered with their software, and it's been there for quite some time. And there is a new one after virtualization. It is also doing an effective way, but containers almost not killed, but it is a very new way of approach to the virtualization. We'll see what is containers in a moment. So first thing, as I told, base OS is there. So on top of your base OS, or the current machine which I'm using, I installed VMware workstation, right? So just VMware workstation, and it is a just an application, right? So on top of that, and this is what will take in care of the virtualization. Okay, so on top of that, you have your operating system, which is RHEL, right? So you can use any version. So let's say RHEL 8.x, any version. So here is where your resource will be shared. Okay, so what are all the resources? Your CPU, memory, and your disk, right? So yeah, right. So like that, it will be sharing. So which is very, very important, right? So because this also a fully running, or it is a actual same operating system, but virtually we are going to install it, right? So that's what this RHEL 8 is. On top of that, we are going to install some software. So just for the time being, let's say I'm installing HTTP, right? So HTTP service or software, it will be installed on top of this RHEL. Okay, so yeah, so that's your virtualization. And how about containers, right? So what is the difference between containers, or what is the need for that? So it VMware, or this is still being used, and it is very uh, it is like a best practice actually when it comes to infra side, because you are going to use the full or almost everything in your resource effectively, right? So that's good. But the issue with virtualization is you need to install a full operating system in order to install this specific, let's say, application, right? So if let's say you want to run a database, you want to install the whole operating system just to run that database, or open that application, right? So that's fine until let's say you don't need that uh, full operating system just to run one single database, right? So you need to have your own customized, or very lean way of approach to that. So what is a lean way means? You have very less resource, let's say, right? So in that case, Docker pioneered this one. So hub.docker.com. Here, yeah. So you have, let's say, Grafana. So Grafana is nothing but a monitoring tool, right? So instead of running a full operating system, just for running this Grafana, I can simply run a Grafana container um, or a container with the Grafana image. So that itself will be solving the issue, right? Or that is more than enough. Okay, so that's the use of containers. And the main thing which is differing is, so this is Docker for Windows, let's say. So it is similar to your VMware workstation here we use, right? So we are on top of your base OS, you install Docker for Windows. And after that is the important one, which is called as Docker engine. So that's the one which will be converting all the images to your native support, which is called as Docker engine. Okay, so like it will compile all the, like let's say Linux machine you are running or any application, everything, it will be compiled here, right? So that's the purpose of Docker engine. And on top of that, we are having the actual image, right? So this itself will be like, let's say this is your container. Inside the container, you have the boot image, and you are having this one. So let me just zoom a bit. So this is your image. So image means it's nothing but your ISO. Okay. So similarly here also, these are all different images. Specifically for Docker, there is an image, and even you can create your own images. We will see those in later section. But as of now, this is an image. Let's say this is from Grafana, or even HTTP is also there. So you just type HTTP. Yeah. So this is the official Apache HTTP image. Okay. So, and what is this one is like your what the required library files, right? So library files or some bootable or any files, let's say bootable files required for that image, it will also be bundled and created with the container. So once you create an or pull the image, you can create your own container. Okay, so let's say you created the container. So what is the another purpose of container, and the best thing about that is, so let's say I work in the company and I want to share, or my colleague also should be working in the same version of the, let's say, application. Okay, so let's say he also want to have the exact HTTP 2.3 or some version is there, right? So if you want to use that, he need to follow exactly the same pattern. He need to install the exact workstation or VMware same version and on top of the same OS. Then only he need to, or you will be sharing this one to him, right? So obviously this will be solved, but just for your understanding, there might be a version issue, right? So, or you need to create a clone, or you need to create a VMware image out of this all, and it will be a huge one in size. So that obviously you can share it, but it will be a bit hard for you to share. Like let's say it will be around 10 gigs, right? So you need to share it. So instead, the containers, right? So it is almost neglecting the whole operating system, right? So it is directly running on top of your base OS. Here also the resource sharing is there, but in a very, very minimal way. So here the resource will be shared with just less than 500 MB. Okay? So um, instead of having a huge disk allocated just for the VMware or virtualization, here it will be shared very minimal. And the best part is it is container is nothing but your kind of an archive, right? So you create a compression or any compress directory, right? So let's say, um, let me take a small directory only. Yeah. So if I paste it here, And if I right click, send to compressed, means this is a exactly same directory with all the like metadata, every nothing will be affected if I copy it, right? So similar way, your containers, all the information, everything, even the date modified, everything will be stays the same, and simply you can share it with any one of your colleagues, right? So, or you can even publish it in this domain or this Docker hub, and they can fetch from there easily. Okay, so that's the main USP of Docker. And Red Hat has their own version of Docker, which is called as Podman. And even Podman can pull this Docker link. Okay, so this is a open source one. So, and there are major players here. So if you see the official images, you see um, Ubuntu is also there. So it is not a full-fledged operating system. You might think that okay, it then there is no purpose of a VMware, right? So simply you can use this, but the point is it is not a like a full-fledged operating system, obviously, right? So there are bit few caveats will be there, but it does its job. Okay, so let's say you want to run a simple application. Obviously, this does the job. Okay, and we have Redis server and the Postgres like that, even Python, like that. The list goes on. Almost every major place has their own image in the Docker hub. Okay, so if you have time, please go through this one. It is a very very interesting way of approach to the this kind of a infra issue, because but you may think that okay, there is then virtualization will be not preferred nowadays. Obviously no, it's been there for quite some time. So nowadays what companies are doing is they are combining both the VMware or the virtualization along with the containers, right? So they are not simply relying on containers. So it is like a combination of both. Okay, so yeah, that's here, virtualization and containers. And let me just give a quick glance of how to enable the virtualization. So by default, your hardware vendor, which is like HP, Dell, or any your laptop vendors are right there, right? So they will be disabling the virtualization. Okay, so they don't want you to use the virtualization by default. Obviously, you can enable it, right? So in order to check your virtualization is enabled or not, just go to the same task manager, performance, CPU, and I am in the exact page only. So you see the virtualization here, it is mentioned as enabled. If it is disabled in your case, you just go to your Google search and type HP virtualization enable BIOS you can do. So the very first link will be the official HP support. Okay. But here itself, we can see the summary of that. So you just need to press F10 to go to the BIOS setup and like this. Okay, so and you need to do this from by default, it will be in disabled state. You just click on that and enable it. Okay, so that's what how you enable the virtualization in your laptop. Okay, so why we need the virtualization to be enabled? Then only you can actually use the same resources virtually in your VMware, right? So that's the very, very important step this one is. And not only HP, if you want to search for Lenovo, every vendor has the first link will be populated from their end only. So why I'm asking you to go and search as per your vendor is because I may tell the BIOS key is F10, but few vendors are using F1. So you see, Lenovo is using F1, but mostly in my PC it is F2. In my HP laptop it is F9. So it depends on your hardware vendor, right? So that's the reason. You just search in the Google and go with your vendor's BIOS key, and please do enable the virtualization. So even though if you are trying to install via GCP or any other mode, or like your let's say AWS or any other way, still try to install this one. Okay, so sorry, try to enable this one. There is no issues you will face by enabling this one. There is no security issue or something, right? So yeah, so you need to enable that. And in the next session, we'll do the installation. So with that, yeah, that's it for the day then. Any doubts, anyone? And this is the link for joining the session. So if you can go through the YouTube channel of Logic Labs to see what are all the previous batches I covered. So let me show you the, yeah, this is the YouTube link. And these are all the social links for Logic Labs. And yeah, the course fee is around 4130, and duration is of 4 weeks. So yeah, so if you understood or if you like the way I approach this topics or course, you can opt for the sessions. Okay, so yeah, so yeah, if there is any doubt, please do let me know. If not, we can wind up the session. It's already time. So yeah, and today's session's recording also will be posted in the YouTube channel, so you can check there. Okay, so yeah, that's it for the day, guys. Then uh, thanks all for the joining the session. Have a great day. Bye bye.